come on, let's be...
National television series to inform the nation of its bloodiest race riot. It happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. For nearly 80 years, a massacre of blacks was, according to the New York Times, and I quote, never publicly discussed in Tulsa, nor mentioned in classrooms or textbooks. Many residents had no idea that whites burned the city's once prosperous black community to the ground. End of quote. Whites hunted down and slaughtered hundreds of blacks, burned 1,000 black homes, and decimated one of the most prosperous business developments in the United States. The Negro Wall Street, it was called. It was a shameful American version of ethnic cleansing, one white man in Tulsa said. And the killing and looting earned Tulsa the distinction of being the first U.S. city to be bombed from the air, referring to the use of Curtiss JN-4 Jennies to drop incendiary materials, Molotov cocktails, onto black homes. In 1997, the Tulsa Race Riot Commission was formed by the Oklahoma legislature, overcoming a conspiracy that had kept the truth out of the school history books and a nation ignorant of its violent, racist past, especially the inflammatory period between 1919 and 1921, and of the prosperity that blacks enjoyed when given the opportunity to compete. I'm Tony Brown. In a moment, reparations for the Tulsa race riot.
At that time, down on Greenwood, you could buy anything you wanted. Anything. Clothes, shoes, they had theaters and everything. And it was pretty. And it, you know, they had lots of customers and things. I was a little nosy kid and I was just looking to see what all I could see.
The whole evolution of how Tulsa got to be the Greenwood district and blacks settling in. First of all, Tulsa, Oklahoma was the oil capital of the world. They had so much money changing hands long before we dealt business in the Middle East. Tulsa, Oklahoma was the heartbeat of the oil capital of the United States. So as a result of rich corporate America, you had an influx of so many blacks being able to have domesticated work. As a result of the domestics being hired, the physicians, the attorneys, the doctors, the lawyers, and the bottom line was segregation was such a monster in Oklahoma. Oklahoma went from having all these black towns, strong black business districts. In 1915, segregation got so bad you had separate telephone booths in Oklahoma. Only place in the United States that had ever transpired.
The all-black community in Tulsa in the early 1900s had produced some of the richest black families in America. Its financial district was so prosperous that in 1913 it was referred to as the Negro Wall Street. Blacks owned a substantial portion of the land and independently operated their own businesses, hospitals, banks, and schools. On May 31st, 1921, Tulsa was literally torn apart by racial hatred, resulting in one of the worst race riots in the United States history. The facts of this story are debatable, and an obvious attempt to hide them is evident. According to some whites, the riot was sparked by the alleged sexual attack of a white woman by a 19-year-old shoeshine boy named Dick Rowland in an elevator in downtown Tulsa. However, many blacks believed Rowland's version, that he merely stepped on the woman's foot. Subsequently, the charges were dropped, but not before news of the alleged attack gave a mob of angry whites the opportunity that they had been waiting for ever since blacks began to prosper in Tulsa, a chance to destroy the thriving black community of Greenwood. A headline in the Tulsa Tribune read, "To Lynch Negro Tonight." All copies of that article have since mysteriously been removed. As the race riot broke out, the white mob raced through the streets with high-powered weapons, hunting down blacks. They crossed the tracks into Tulsa's black district and began to loot and burn every building in sight. The mob focused on robbing and burning black businesses and homes. By the next morning, Tulsans awoke to the sight of the 36-block section of Greenwood in full blaze. 5 black men were seen trapped in one of the burning houses. When one of them tried to escape the flames, he was shot and his body thrown back into the house. Though it never entered the official report, many of Tulsa's black victims said they saw an airplane drop what appeared to be firebombs on the buildings in the black community. Others recalled being shot at from the air.
And I was coming down Greenwood, and the bullet hit on the floor, down the pavement.
An airplane came and dropped. I guess we would call them firebombs now, gasoline in jugs and set them afire, you know. So that's how the blacks were driven out of Greenwood.
This incident put Tulsa in the history books as the first American city to be bombed from the air. The official death count was 36, but it has been estimated to be as high as 300. Oklahoma State Representative Don Ross represents District 73, which includes the Greenwood area. In 1997, he introduced the bill that created the 1921 Tulsa Race Riot Commission.
Surrounded by the realities of racism and segregation, 35 square blocks of the Black Wall Street of America were destroyed. The community, when the state police came to Tulsa, they only arrested black folks. They left the rioters, they left the looters, they left the murderers to rampage my community. More than that, the sheriff deputized the mob at the courthouse. So they were able to loot, burn, and murder under the color of law. So when you have survivors living, and you have descendants who have suffered, when rioters were acting under the color of law, I think reparations are an appropriate subject to be discussed. We'll never know the number of dead. I think it may be less than 300 and more than the official count of 100. But funerals were banned at the time. Even the National Guard said when they arrived on the scenes, white vigilantes were carting blacks off. The historical, the oral history of our community suggests that they were buried in dams along the Arkansas River or thrown in the river and in pits. We don't know. We do not know. But those incidents alone would suggest that the number is greater than the 100 that were killed. And then there are records of people who were not a part of the official count who died later after the riot.
Representative Ross is extending the life of the commission